Many families have secrets. Sometimes they're long-held secrets. Secrets such as one of the members has had an abortion in the past or was previously married and they don't want the other members to know about it, or that someone in the family is gay, or that there has been an affair. Some secrets are shorter secrets, or some might consider smaller secrets. Secrets such as fears that people don't want others to know about, or angry feelings that they don't want to share. Sometimes these secrets can affect the immediate family, and sometimes they can affect future generations. Should secrets be told, or should they be kept? These are some of the questions we're going to be addressing today on This Life.
I have 5 facts I'd like to share with you ladies today about family secrets. Almost every family has a family secret.
Amen to that.
Oh. I wasn't going to admit to it.
Family secrets might include mental illness, substance abuse, adoption, or miscarriages. Secrets can divide family members and cause permanent damage. They can isolate the families from others, and telling secrets in the wrong way or at the wrong time can be painful and destructive.
Oh, I've seen that.
I sure have too. Well, I have a short scenario here about family secrets. John recently started college and was astonished to find out that there's a student in his class, Bill, who is John's half-brother. He never knew he had any siblings. The two men look alike and have similar mannerisms, in addition to being the same height and having similar sounding speaking voices. John is convinced that this is his half-brother. However, his parents deny knowing anything about any relatives living in the area. On the contrary, Bill tells John that his mother had an affair the year before John was born, of which he is the offspring.
Nice.
He even shows John a 20-year-old photograph of Bill's father and John's mother posing together. John is dumbfounded and deeply disturbed that his parents have kept this a secret from him. Can you imagine?
I'm dumbfounded, and it's not me. They would have kept something like that.
Which part are you most I mean, because there's lots of secrets going on.
Lots in this.
Whether or not there was an affair, whether or not Bill is the result of that affair, if they did have an affair. And then there's the idea of the half-brother. I mean, there's a lot of potential ifs going on here.
Well, I think he was pretty stunned. This is somebody I actually knew of. And he went to his parents and he said, could this be a lie? How could it be a lie if we look alike and we talk alike and there's so much about us? And he showed me a picture and the parents just flatly denied it and said there was no more discussion about it.
So you're saying he saw a person at school?
Yes.
And
it was like looking in a mirror.
That's my half-brother.
Well, they got to be friends, and as they were talking, they found out, what's your dad's name? Oh, it's so-and-so. What's your mom's name? So-and-so. But I was adopted by such and such. Oh. And as they started to talk together and spend more time together, they discovered that they were actually half-brothers.
Oh, so they did
They
discover
are half-brothers, yes.
Oh, so that's...
So if they are half-brothers, the secret then is how they're half-brothers?
That Bill came from an affair with John's parents, John's mother and his father.
So, okay, so the secret is no longer whether or not they're brothers. Do the parents know that they know they're half-brothers?
Yes.
Yes.
But the parents are denying it. The parents are saying there's no credence to this whatsoever, but they have a picture, so there's a secret, but they're keeping a secret that is no longer a secret.
And that's the part why I was dumbfounded.
Well, what are they supposed to say? Oh, we had an affair and you're the offspring?
Yeah.
Well, one would think.
What?
I mean, because if they don't talk about it, then that makes Bill out to be some kind of miscreant or...
How much... simple answer would be to fix it. Would the boys go get a paternity test? They could figure out, But if they talk alike and they look alike,
Right.
if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
Well, the picture of the parents together could be.
is another.
But I think a
another clue.
paternity test would be a good idea.
And I think I'm a little sad. No, I think I'm getting a little upset. I'm upset for these young men, especially the one who asks his parents, is this true? And you go, no, it's not true.
Well, but I guess I'm wondering, at what age do you tell a child
Well, see, that's just it.
that they have a sibling and that there was an affair? At what?
And does the spouse even know?
Okay, I don't think I'm the right one to speak on it because I say you tell them as soon as they can possibly find out. If you live in a town, and here's why. One of the interesting things from my cultural background, being Jamaican, it wasn't unheard of for you to go one parish over. We have 14 parishes. Our country's decent size, but it's small. It was not unheard of for you to go one parish over for a young man to fall in love with a young lady and say, I'm going to bring her home, and grandma goes, you don't want to do that. Well, why not, grandma? That's your sister. What? That's your sister? It wasn't unheard of. That secret, especially if it has legs and it moves, at some point you're going to bump into each other.
To protect people.
Yeah. How does it feel? I can't even think of being in the place of that son who looks at his brother and asks the question, is this true? And you flatly go, no. Then I'm crazy. Then I must be crazy.
Well, I think that's what a lot of people do when they get conflicting information like that, especially children. If they're not told something, then they think it must be about me. Maybe I'm the one who misunderstands.
Absolutely.
And they start distrusting. Is that the right? They don't trust themselves. And they don't trust their feelings. They don't trust their intuition any longer. And they just live with this kind of unreal kind of feeling. But the question remains, at what point? I mean, I can understand that you want to protect people, but I think if I were a parent and this happened to me, if I was involved in something, I would find it very painful to share this with my children.
Absolutely. I think it would be very painful. And yet the question is, are you going to put your pain above the pain it will cause your child? Because now it almost feels to me it's going to continue another generation. So you keep a secret, and then your child doesn't know.
I can't stay silent any longer.
Please don't stay silent.
I'm going to be the devil's advocate.
Okay.
Well, there's a new role.
Yeah.
So,
Secrets are painful.
Absolutely.
Yes, but the truth is also painful. So we have a young couple. One of them has strayed. And out of that comes a pregnancy. Now, their spouse maybe doesn't even know. So it's easy to understand why at that moment a person would say, you know what, now is not the time. I'm not saying it's the right thing, I'm just saying it's easy to understand.
Absolutely.
And then, because you've got to talk about the affair and now the pregnancy. Okay, and now you've waited a month or 2 or 3 or 4, and maybe the child is 2 or 3. Do you tell them then? No. Okay, now the child that you're playing with is really your brother, but I can't tell you that because my husband will leave me. I mean, you see how it gets all
it's very complex.
Complicated.
Oh, absolutely.
But it gets even more complicated because you could say, if no one ever knows, might it be better
Maybe
not to
away.
tell? Not that it will go away. I guess it brings up the question, should every secret be told? We're assuming that the young people find each other, but what if they never had? I'm just throwing out.
Well, that's, yeah.
And I hear you. Absolutely. I think for the partner who has done, this has happened to, that it is very painful. And the shame that comes along with this is unbelievable. Yet, I know of 2 specific cases where there were children raised in families and they knew they weren't from that family. Their whole life, they just knew. They knew something was wrong.
Well, I thought that too. My neighbor told me I was adopted. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah, but I'm so mad at you right now.
That's just mean and spiteful.
It is. But I can think of one particular instance, the young lady in question, all her life, she looked at her brothers and her sisters. And though she had the name, though she was loved and treated, now her siblings knew that she was not their mother's child, that she was their father's child. But she didn't know. And I don't know if it was in her teen years she got suspicious. She was looking at how she didn't have her the curve of her face. She didn't have the same where her mother's body was. She just looked very, very different. And it wasn't until she was halfway in her adult, maybe 20, 21, she finally confronted them and said, "Who is my mother?"
Oh, my.
And they admitted that the dad had had an affair, and mom had said, "Bring her home, and I will raise her." And I cannot begin to tell you the anger, the bitterness that was there, because she always knew. I don't know how she knew. I have another friend, a young man.
Okay, go ahead.
Another young man, same thing. Grew up in a home where he had his father's name. But it wasn't until he was maybe 20, 21 that he found out that though he had his father's name, that was not his father. And I mean, the damage that it did was unbelievable.
Let's talk about the damage on the other side. A child grows up believing that their father is their father. They love this man. And then they're told when they're an adult that actually that man is not the real father. It is another man that they've never been able to locate and don't care to locate. They are angry now that his picture has been disturbed. They would have rather just had the one father and gone on about it.
I'm looking at your face, you're like...
Well, I've opened a can of worms.
We're talking about family secrets now. We're talking about children and their parents.
Well, I think there's all kinds of secrets, and I think the questions you've both raised are really good. Do you tell? Do you not tell? And what about there are secrets that should be told? I think very quickly, very soon. Such as sexual abuse.
Yes.
If you've been abused by someone, you must tell an adult that is trustworthy, that's going to do something, because a lot of kids are sworn to secrecy by the person that abuses them, and those are times when they shouldn't keep secrets.
And going back to this can of worms that, Barbara, you've helped us to unlock.
Oh, I'm trying to get away from that.
Yeah, she was trying, but you were so faithful in bringing us back.
Because on both sides, I agree with you. For the child who would have been fine if he didn't know, and for the child who senses, both of them at some point have to deal with that. There are, there's a saying from Jamaica, and I know you all have heard it: what goes on in the dark always comes to light. It's just when does the light shine on it? And do you diffuse some of the damage if you do it early enough?
What I wish people did more of, though, is ask a child if they want to know. Because like when in death situations, we ask children, would you like to see your deceased sibling? They get to choose. And sometimes I wonder why we don't ask children. We have something in the family that, would you like to?
Oh, I think that would be horrible.
To ask or to know?
Why?
I wouldn't want to be asked that, because that's a huge huge responsibility.
You would rather your parent just tell you? What if you're not ready? What if the time is not right?
Now here's the piece.
What if you?
From a Christian perspective, for me, as I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking biblically of generational curses, and you look in the Old Testament of things that went on for generation to generation, and God says it's going to continue. There comes a time when it says, okay, what does God say? God says anyone in Christ is new. The old is passed away. I know of a situation of one mother whose life before she got married and had children was awful. And she made a decision with her husband that when her sons turned a certain age, she would take them out. She would sit down with them and she would say, let me tell you about your mom. And the reason she did that was because people knew who she was. And the last thing she wanted was for someone else to make a statement to her children that she had not
But how does
prepared.
she know at what age people are going to make a statement to her children?
Well, can we be truthful? People will say anything at any time.
Right, exactly.
I think, though, for her, it was something that she prayed about, and maybe she consulted a counselor and talked to them about, and then learning and looking at her children and their development. And part of her telling was because she didn't want her sons to repeat the same behaviors.
Sure.
But why not let a child have some control about the manner in which they're told? It's like hearing about the birds and the bees. Now, this is not my mother, nor was it my aunt. But someone was thinking it was time for me to hear about it in a grocery store and then said, see that up there? You'll be using, is that the way to hear? Okay, I would, what would be so wrong about asking a child if the time is good to have a serious conversation?
Well, that's
or
good.
if there are certain kinds of things, would they like to know about them? I mean, children have the ability to choose, don't you think?
I agree. I think if my mother had asked me, had asked, there's some things my mom told me at 16 that I wish she had told me when I was 9.
Exactly.
Because the way she was parenting me at 9 was because of the secrets that she didn't tell me, but I didn't understand that. And I think, I don't know, help us.
Well, I think we need to look at all different kinds of secrets,
Yeah.
because there's the one we talked about here with a family. There are secrets about a family member that's gay or lesbian, and no one says anything.
It's as if they've
But
died
they
and
get
fallen
teased
out.
about being single.
That's right.
Or
Or an aunt or uncle that everybody dislikes, but nobody will
But
say
no one
so.
will say why. There
Mental
might be
illness.
adoptions. Maybe someone has put a child up for adoption
Mental
or a baby.
illness, yeah.
Mental illness is a big one.
No one talks about that one.
No one
Miscarriage.
does. Yeah, no one does. Miscarriage, things that aren't recognized, and it really is damaging in some way.
Now, I have this illusion, I guess, sometimes I think people look at me a little odd, but this idea of living in community, you know, especially in a community of faith, there should be enough rubber in the room that I can share what's going on, some of my secrets.
Rubber in the room.
You know, bounce off. It won't stick. There should be, I think, a safe place for a community. You know, when I shared about the miscarriages that I went through, one, I asked my husband if he was comfortable with me talking about it. And I did speak about it once at my home church. And the amount of women who came to me afterwards and felt so affirmed, because finally someone had actually said it. One woman said to me, I had 6 miscarriages, and I told my husband no more. And people kept asking me, when are you going to have a baby? And one of the things I said to our members at the time was, when you see a young woman, a young couple married, and years have passed and they have no children, the question is not to ask, when are you going to have a baby? What you might want to say is, I'm praying for your family. And in God's time, it will happen. Because those are the places where there should be some safety to actually be able to talk.
I like what you're saying, Dilys. I think that, you know, the Bible says you will know the truth will set you free. And I think a lot of people carry around a lot of secrets. But many of us are in communities where there is no safe place, or we think there's no safe place.
Right.
And if we have a Bible study group, or a godly friend, or, wonderful people at church that we can confide in and share some of these things and get some guidance about how do we open them up, how do we bring them to light. I think that's really useful sometimes.
I'd love to talk about some guidelines, though.
Yes.
Because I remember teaching a class, and it was a class of not young people, adult people, older people. And I'll never forget a young girl, fairly young, in her late 20s, raising her hand, said she had something to tell to the class. Now, we had only been together 2 days in a seminar, and she raised her hand and said she was gay. None of us knew her. It was an odd context for her to tell that. But when I asked her later why that context, she said that no context had ever been right. And she said, better to tell a group of people I don't know than to hold it any longer. And I just want to look at a guideline there, though. She said if she had had it, a better way would have been to have a context that was kind and considerate, that loved her, and we were all, we didn't know her, foreigners to her.
Right.
But that was the last resort, you know. So one guideline is, when you have a secret, to think about, if you're deciding to share it, what is the best context and who are the best people.
Right.
And I was thinking about another guideline is, not every secret should be given.
Absolutely.
Told.
Absolutely.
Even though they're extremely powerful, some secrets shouldn't ever be told. And maybe we can talk about.
What kind of secrets are you thinking of?
I'm thinking specifically, I've done a fair amount of counseling with young couples premarital. And their constant question will be, should I tell my prospective mate about the sexual encounters that I have had? The details of the sexual encounters. And my response back is that you can't unknow or unthink or unsay things. So what is the picture you want your loved one to have from, now on about your past? Because you can't undo it. You can't unsay what you're saying. And are you telling the details to protect them, physically, illness, those kinds of things? Are you telling them so that they can graphically imagine you with that what is your reason for telling? So I think that's another guideline in looking at secrets, is what is your reason for telling it?
What kind of response do you want is part of that
because
too.
Some people actually tell secrets to hurt others.
Yes.
Yes. one of my mentors, I think she told me pretty much the same thing once. She said, you know, the only person you ever have to confess to is God. She says, that's the person you confess. If you need to confess anything, take it and confess. Yet I've found people, I've met people who do need to kind of say it out there. And the spouse is not the place to go, especially when you're beginning a marriage.
Well, and there is such a thing as discretion and privacy and boundaries around this too.
And thinking about how your telling of a secret will affect another person. It may feel better off of my chest, but will it feel better onto another's?
There's a term called the burden of knowing.
Yes, the burden of knowing.
And when you divulge something to someone else, they can barely hold it.
Okay, email questions.
Yes.
I am married to my wife of 20 years. About 7 years ago, I had an affair that ended after 2 years, apparently during the time they were married. It, or the affair, is now completely over and has been for 5 years. To this day, my wife knows nothing of the affair, at least that I can tell. Should I tell her? Is it important to share this secret? I don't like living with it, and yet I don't want it to unnecessarily hurt our marriage by putting it out into the open. I'm so glad I get to ask the question because now you get to respond.
Well, I'd like to respond to that. I don't think we can make a blanket statement to say you always should or you always shouldn't, because people are different, marriages are different, the foundation for relationships are different. And, you know, the notion that the truth does set us free, it might set us free, but it might so burden the other person that there's irreparable damage that can never be undone.
Actually, I actually struggle a little bit with the text because the truth it's talking about is the truth about God. So then we have to think about what does it mean, you know, about truth in general.
This is helpful because you hear people say this all the time.
all
I'm
the
going to say
time.
the truth because the truth will set you free. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Well, and it's not a correction. It's simply to say, I think when you have a secret, we all have to think about how does this relate to a God-led life?
Sure.
It's not just the truth. It's the truth in relation to a God-led life.
Sure.
So what of this?
Well, and I talked to a man one time who said to me, I have a little black box in the back of my head, and there are certain things that have gone in there, and I will never tell anybody as long as I'll take it to my grave. And his reason for that was he didn't want to hurt anybody. And maybe it just loomed larger than it was, but it was very scary to him, and he didn't want to hurt anyone, so he locked it away. And some marriages, they'll falter after you share. They'll falter, they'll struggle, they need to get into a therapist because you want to hear both voices around that. But some couples can weather that and actually become stronger.
As a result.
I guess my concern, sorry Dilys, my concern is that person who's not going to tell, are they being accountable? Do they have a way to be accountable so that it doesn't ever occur again? Because we know that people who say, oh, we're just going to go back to how things were, I'm going to pretend it never happened, that doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
And so there has to be a checks and balance situation set up so that that person doesn't fall again and really hurt their partner.
And again, a guideline. Are you married to someone who will take that information and use it? Will it benefit your relationship to share it? Or will it destroy it? Can you continue living without telling it? There's all kinds of questions.
That was where I was thinking of. This sense of, okay, you don't tell. How will you change for not telling?
See, I couldn't live with the secret personally, but some people.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one. I was married briefly before meeting the man that I'm now married to. He knows all about it, but my children do not. Is it important that they know about this previous marriage? There were no children involved.
Well, they're going to find out sometime. Sure. Haven't you seen, movies of people looking through a deceased parent's things and, like the Bridge of Madison County that's about sent me to the moon to watch. But, you see these things and people find out later. They will find out some way. Should it be better for them to, how much can you hide that?
And I'm curious about, if you're married before, there were no children, and the marriage didn't work, and you remarry, what would be wrong with them knowing?
Yeah,
what exactly is it that is? Was it because it was an abusive relationship?
Good point.
Was there something wrong with it that you think your children knowing about it will look at you differently. Is it your standing? I don't know. It's a sense of it's something that happened.
Is it guilt? Is it failure? Is it
right.
about them? Or is
Right.
it just a matter of fact?
And
Yeah.
again, how you tell them. Do you want to say, we need together to talk about something very significant that's happened that you don't know about? Or can you say it briefly? You know, did you know that your mother was married before them? It's no big deal because, you know, it's how you treat it.
And one of the things that I think parents don't always understand, someone asked a question, I can't even remember the phrasing of it now, but this idea how we parent our children. You know, when you're going to go give counsel to your children about who not to date and what not to do, you know, your skeletons are rattling around in the closet.
That's right.
You know,
Good point.
So,
And to pretend that they're not is not a gift.
no.
Okay, the next one. 5 years ago, my brother committed suicide when he was 18 and left a note telling us that he was gay. My father has since asked all of us in the family never to talk about him. I am 21 now, and I'm tired of keeping this secret. I'm tired of acting like I never had a brother. What should I do?
Wow. You know, I've worked with people who have had family secrets like this, who have been devastated by the inability to get rid of it. We use the word catharsis, just to get rid of all those feelings and to talk about why they suffered so much of the years and how much they miss that person. There's a lot of pent-up pain in there.
It sounds painful. I mean, the father's in pain. You know, he's in pain and then has inflicted everyone else on this long, painful process and not giving them permission to grieve properly.
That might be his way of coping, but it's not good for the children.
It definitely is.
I have a phrase that I say in my life. I say, I am so sorry that I cannot keep that secret. You know, because some people need the secret kept, and I'm being honest by saying, I understand that you want it kept. I can't keep it.
And even if in this last email question, what I'm thinking of is, for that young person, if the son never took his life, then the whole family has been sworn to secrecy. There's a pattern of, there's an authoritarian twist to this whole thing. It's almost if they can't, have an emotion or they can't feel.
Right.
And that is definitely something to seek help and get guidance and counseling from. You know, today we've been talking about family secrets, and one of the things that I've come across very clearly is that we need to have guidelines about when and how to tell secrets. If we don't tell those secrets, it can hurt us. There's some who can hide it and keep it, but it is best to find someone that you can share, to get the counsel from, to guide you as you're dealing with the secrets that are in your life. Thank you for being with us today on This Life.